Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the regular October meeting of the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission. It is 6:47 on October 18th, and I'll call this meeting to order. Before proceeding, I would just the usual disclaimer: the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission, pursuant to Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation. Recording of these proceedings can be accessed at any time using the registration link at the top of this agenda. And before we proceed, we customarily introduce ourselves. So I'll just go across my screen here, start off with Mr. Falvey.
Hi, my name is Ryan Falvey. I am a resident of Ward 2.
Mr. Bauer.
I'm Dick Bauer. I live in Ward 3. I'm a lawyer and I was trained as a city planner.
And Vice Chair Kelly.
Hi, I'm Robin Kelly. I'm the Realtor representative on the commission and a historic homeowner in Union Square.
And I'm Eric Parks, the chair and architect, resident of Ward 3 and a historic homeowner. And we have our staff with us, Ms. Chekowicz.
Hi, I'm Wendy Checkwitz. I am a preservation planner for the Planning, Preservation, and Zoning Division.
Thank you. And just people who are here, we have two cases tonight during which one or the other of us will need to recuse ourselves for various procedural reasons. If we will have an additional commission member joining us, I think it's 7:15. So if we hit one of those cases before that, we'll just be nudging it back in the agenda until he shows up. Apologize for that, but this is what we have. And the first on our agenda tonight is, I believe it's advisory review of 438 Broadway, which is the Adams Magoon House. It's a CPA HP funding issue. Is anyone here from that applicant?
If anyone is here for that item, please raise your hand and you will be unmuted. Yes. Joseph Mitrano, you are unmuted.
All right, great. I put together a presentation. Is there any way I can share my screen?
Yes, I will go ahead and give you permission to share your screen. Give me 1 second. All right, you should have that permission now.
Can you see my screen here?
Yes.
We can see it,
Yes.
but you might want to get into display mode so that we'll get a bigger, clearer picture.
Sure, let's see. Oh, right. How's that?
That's better. Yes, thank you.
All right, perfect. So I know I only have a few minutes here, so I'll cut right to the chase. I'm Joe Mitrano. I'm the preservation coordinator for SSV Architects. We put together a report for the Adams Magoon House on behalf of the owner, helped put together a CPA application for exterior restoration of the house. So I'm sure you know all about this, with it being in a local historic district, but it was constructed in 1783. It reflects this interesting moment in architectural history where it's kind of at the intersection between the Georgian and federal styles. And it's I found in my research that it's 3-part fanlight, which is obviously is a hallmark of the federal or Adams style. It's reportedly one of the oldest in the Boston area. It's 2.5 stories with 5-bay fenestration, and it has a two-story L off of the rear elevation. That is the rear being the opposite of the side with the door, which doesn't face the street. The builders of the house were Joseph Adams, cousin of John Adams, and Sarah Adams, née Tufts, who was a daughter of 2 prominent early settlers of the area. and their daughter, also Sarah, married John C. Magoon, hence the name of the house. So we put together a conditions assessment and came up with a phased plan. If the CPA grant is only partially awarded. So our first phase involves critical repairs, windows and doors, and then the cornices and gutters. Of those two items, windows and gutters are the most pressing, and I'll get into that in the next slide. Phase 2 involves structural investigation and repairs, and phase 3 involves repointing the foundations and replacing cladding and trim. So here's some photographs of the work areas proposed for phase 1. So most of the windows at the house are non-original with applied glazing bars. There are a number, I think 5 or 6, of wood windows that have true divided lights, and we would want to replace the non-original windows that have grown very faulty over time, are allowing a lot of water into the structure, and the owner reports having a lot of difficulty controlling the climate inside. So we'd like to replace those with new wood windows modeled precisely on the original wood window, which you can see over to the left of the screen. And then we would install low profile storms to minimally disrupt the appearance of the windows. We'd also do that at the transom over the door, but that would, instead of replacing that, we would restore it. We'd do that to any of the original windows, which are all of the windows at the attic, the transom, and one on the L. And then in addition to that, we would replace deteriorated areas of the cornice, specifically the gutter that's been damaged by water and rot. We'd reline the new gutters, and they'd be closely modeled on the existing. We'd reline those with new copper liners and install new copper downspouts. And we'd also restore the architraves via epoxy consolidation, make sure all of the joints in the wood are tight and won't let any more water in, because that's probably the most important character defining feature at the building. For phase 2, we'd like to do some structural investigation, specifically at the lower portions of the building. There is a dramatic kind of bowing, and you can, if you look at the house from the street, you can see it bowing towards the right. And we think that that has to do with the sills rotting and causing the posts and studs to settle or twist. But only a proper structural investigation would allow for that. So as part of that phase, we would get a structural engineer in. Structures North up in Salem is well qualified to do this kind of work, but we can talk about that when we get there. And what is likely to be needed is either sistering of the sills, that means putting in new wood members next to them to support them, or Dutchman repairs to the lower portions of the posts and studs as necessary. And then the openings that are created during that phase would be temporarily concealed until the next phase. We've done this before in Uxbridge at a house of similar age with plywood. Also something like Tyvek could work, but it's more unsightly. And then in the third phase, we would like to fully replace the clapboards because they're in real rough shape. They're letting significant amounts of water into the structure, into the building envelope. And there are ways to have custom-made clapboards that are historically appropriate. So I like to say lapped and skived. That just means that they don't have butt joints like contemporary clapboards, but are instead kind of overlapped over each other. They have scarf joints. And then the casings around the corner posts would similarly be replaced and repainted. As you can see here in the photo in the middle, those are this is a very simple assembly. So the corner post casings, the wood drip edge, and the skirt board can all be planed in a very simple way and can be replicated so as not to disrupt the character of the structure whatsoever. And then a repointing campaign at the outer foundation wall with mortar to match the existing. And we don't anticipate that all of this will receive CPA funding. So phase 1 is really what we should consider right now. But this is a comprehensive overview of what we hope is done to the structure over time. And that's what I have.
Thank you. And our role here is just to provide advice. We're not voting anything, I believe. So, at first glance, it seems like this is a very comprehensive take on this property, and it looks like you've really looked into it and you're proposing things that are respectful of the fabric, the character of the house. The gutters, what are they? Obviously, the wood gutters. Are they older profile wood gutters or the newer ones that you can still get? Would you have to match the older profile?
Yeah, so the gutters would be custom. We when we put together the cost estimate for this, we assumed for custom fabricated wood gutters. Actually, all pieces of the cornice would be custom fabricated to closely match the original.
You get the right curved gutter. Nice.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
That's the intention at least.
Do we have any thoughts to share on the use of copper downspouts?
Is that a question for me or for the commission?
I'm sorry, I'm asking the other commissioners.
Okay.
We tend to shy away from copper downspouts in preference for things that might have been used at the time.
Mhm.
I don't know, Chair Parks, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've never really done an exhaustive study of, I tend to think of that sometimes we over copper buildings of this vintage more than they might have at the time. But I'd put that question for you, Joe. What are you basing the copper preference in the downspouts on?
Sure. So downspouts themselves, as far as I understand, are a little bit of an anachronism for this time period. While it's difficult to determine if there was originally downspouts here, I specified copper just because they have the longest lifespan. But that being said, if there's any recommendations for a different way to go, that's absolutely acceptable. Right now they have, those aluminum ones that are painted, really pretty unsightly. So the copper was really just based on what will last the longest, and not so much on historical accuracy.
It's not something that I would lose sleep over, but I tend to think of them as something that would have been painted back in the day, but I don't know what they would have used. Maybe something wood, or maybe they had copper, this type of place. What else in the commission? Do you think this is something that we ought to change to? What would it be? Just something round painted, which I suppose could be the same copper or galvanized.
Yeah, my feeling is that the copper downspouts just draw a lot of attention to themselves. They're a little bit blingy, which this, it wouldn't have had. And I don't know that those are the features that, given the architectural integrity of the house, that, should the downspouts be stealing the thunder of any other components. So, I think a painted downspout would be better, but.
Okay. Absolutely. Yeah, they're, a painted round would be a good option, but.
Sure. In fact, it'd be kind of matching the the color that copper would patina in 20 years, you sort of get in that color range. We don't have a say over paint color generally, but finish in general. We can. So that would be I would concur with Vice Chair Kelly on that. I think it would be slightly better. Everything else you've described, I have no issue with them. The restoration of the existing windows, right? The low profile storms, you'll be getting custom made sash made to match the remaining ones. You said there are a couple existing windows still?
There are. So this one that you see on the left here is one of the existing 6/9s. And then there are smaller ones. These windows up here are still existing. They don't have their shutters anymore. But this is a historic window. It has a broken pane. As you can see, it's in pretty rough shape. But we know quite a few contractors who could bid on this and do this very well. And then yes, the others would be fabricated in wood and then protected. All of them would get those low profile storms, both to protect the original ones and to control the climate inside the house.
So were those original? Do I see a latch on the side? Was this a casement?
That's actually a lock there. That's how these windows lock. It's a very interesting detail. Okay. It's not a casement though. It's a double hook.
Okay, that's what I would have thought, but then I saw that hardware there. Okay. Does anybody else have any comments for this or suggestions?
No, I think it all sounds very thoughtfully thought through.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a great project. Thank you for getting this house ready to go for the next 200 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure working on it. I appreciate your feedback.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Through you. So previously we've had you just vote to solidify your advice to the applicant. So if we could do that this time, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay. So what would we need a motion that we advise what really the only comment we had was to do with the downspout color. Is that correct?
Correct.
I'm not quite sure how to phrase that, but maybe somebody wants to make a stab at it.
Mr. Bauer, you're usually good at wordsmithing.
Thank you. We try. So I move that we approve the proposed scope of work with the change that the downspouts should be painted so as to be inconspicuous.
Perfect. I second that.
Okay, all in favor of the motion put forward by Mr. Bauer, say aye.
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 Opposed? And we'll do a roll call. Before doing that, though, Mr. Chagnon, were you here enough to hear this, or do you want to abstain?
I was not, so I was going to abstain on the actual vote.
Okay, fair enough. So, Mr. Falvey?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Oh, and then Mr. Chagnon just abstained. All right. Well, thank you, folks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck with the rest of your business. Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
For anybody who just noticed that Mr. Chagnon is here, you want to give a quick introduction since you missed our introductions?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm DJ Chagnon. I'm a landscape architect and a resident of Ward 5. I knew it just took me a moment. It's been a long day.
Definitely a ward. You live in a ward.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And with that, we're through the advisory review. So the next category is our determinations of historic significance. We have 4 cases. The first is HPC DMO 2022.32, 17 Hudson Street. The applicant is Nicole Black and Michael Petit. Owner is same as the applicant. The applicant seeks to demolish a principal structure constructed a minimum of 75 years ago. Do we have an applicant here tonight?
Can the applicant for this item please raise your hand and we will unmute you? Yes, Nicole Black and Michael Petit, you are unmuted.
Hi there. My name is Nicole Black.
Yep, I'm Michael Pettit. We're here together.
Hi, welcome. We understand it's a demolition case. Do you want to have anything you want to convey to the commission before we take up the case? Introduce the project, et cetera.
Sure. Yeah. So Mike, my husband, and I purchased this property in May of this year. You know, it's a single family home. And you know, we had originally planned on keeping it, but through bringing several contractors and architects over, there's been several issues with it, including the foundation. The floors are sagging and sloped. There's significant water damage on the 3rd floor. The chimney is collapsing. There's knob and tube wiring in the property, throughout the property. We also want to note that the report said that the siding is wood clapboard. It's actually aluminum siding. And in addition, there's a back addition to the property that is not in compliance with the current Somerville codes. It's actually too close to our back neighbor's property to actually exist with the current codes. So we're basically optimizing the single family home for ourselves.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys.
Thank you.
And okay, with that, we switch to, we'll take public comment. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak about this case? If so, please raise your hand and staff will allow you in.
Yes. Any members of the public, please raise your hand and we can unmute you on our end. Mr. Chairman, I am going through the list to see if anyone has their hand raised. All right, Denise Provost, you are unmuted on our end. You will need to unmute yourself to be able to speak.
Okay, I think, can you hear me? Did I
Yes.
succeed? Thank you. I am the abutter to the rear of 17 Hudson. And I'm very glad that Nicole and Mike have bought this house and moved to the neighborhood. Indeed, it does have aluminum siding and has had no maintenance since we moved in the beginning of 1989. And you know, when the siding went on, there was nothing of historic significance preserved. The only thing that's architecturally interesting is some of the decoration on the porch, like the little fan-shaped things, which could easily be removed and put on another dwelling. And the chimney is falling in, you can see it, you know, which could do even more harm to the systems of the house. I know it's not your jurisdiction, but I know that Nicole and Mike enjoy our huge silver maple tree as much as we do. My only concern about the demolition is damage to the roots of the silver maple. But, you know, otherwise, they've showed me their architect's design, and, you know, I was afraid that this house was going to be a developer's tear down, and I'm delighted to know that they want to salvage it and have come up with a site-specific design that I think is sensitive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand and we will unmute you for a 2-minute public comment period. All right, I'm going through the list one more time just to make sure no one else's hands are up. Mr. Chairman, there are no members of the public with their hands up. You may close the public comment.
Okay, I'll close the public comment portion of this case for this hearing. And I didn't give my customary description of what the demo process is. And just for those who haven't been through this before, with demolition cases in Somerville, it's a two-step process. And the first is what we're doing with this particular case in this category, which is determination of historic significance, which is really not considering what might go in its place or a lot of other factors, more macro level factors to do with preservation in general. It's very site specific to that particular building. Does it have significance either in its own right, due to somebody who lived there, due to its position in relationship to its surrounding area and stuff like that. So if we vote yes, that make this determine this as significant, then we would schedule a public hearing for the next meeting, and then we basically consider whether it is preferable that it be preserved or not. And that tends to be more considering other factors, its condition, its things like that. So with that, we'll take it up as commission. Who has any thoughts on this?
So I will go first. So I appreciate that you bought the house because you wanted to live there, and your plan is to tear it down and put up another house in which you will live rather than having it go to a developer. But I'm wondering whether you really have sufficiently explored the possibilities of doing the renovation work necessary to keep the house and bring it back into good condition. Many of us live in houses of about that era, and they often have those kinds of problems, but they are rarely so bad as to require a tear down of the whole place. Often what you hear from are structural engineers or contractors who have a real interest in having it torn down and having a clean sheet project to work from. And they may not be giving you a full enough version of the other side of the story.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Bauer.
I would say that this house appears to retain its largely original form and massing, with the single level porch on the front gable, which is echoed in many of the houses of different sizes and uses in the neighborhood, but it contributes to the streetscape in terms of the overall rhythm with the front facing gables of the 2 3/4 story house. It has the side double height bay. While there have been alterations, it doesn't seem so bastardized as to make it unidentifiable as a structure of its vintage. And it does retain a lot of its original architectural integrity. So, yeah. So I'd have a hard time saying that this is ready for the wrecking ball.
So
Thank you.
following on that, I know that the house fell. Welcome to the neighborhood. I'm around the corner from you on Benton Road. I look forward to meeting you around the neighborhood at some point. It definitely is, I know the property well since you're a block and change away. And it's the key feature to me about this property, in my experience of it, has always been sort of the massing of it and the way it sits on a larger than average lot. Otherwise, the house itself is a lot like many of the others in the neighborhood, in a lot of respects. It does, as Vice Chair Kelly and Mr. Bauer said, retain a lot of the original massing and so forth. other than its lot and a little bit that lovely large front porch, which was at some point an addition, it looks like. It isn't particularly different than most of the other houses in this stretch of Hudson. So I'm on the fence as to whether it meets that line of, importantly associated or particularly significant architecturally, given how prevalent its building type and massing are. That said, I think that the site's overall, and it comes back to being the landscape architect on the commission maybe, but the site's overall, the fact that this sort of sits a little bit wider, and you've got lovely yards that I'm in envy of, being on a little postage stamp myself. It's an interesting throwback to back before we all got jam-packed together right on top of each other in the city. But even in 1925, we were on a sort of a larger than average lot there, which was kind of interesting in terms of the development pattern, I suppose. Yeah, I guess that's my 2 cents. I'm on the fence as to whether the building in and of itself stands out all that much from the rest of the streetscape. Not that they're not worth preserving necessarily, but I don't know, that I'm on the fence where I'm at on it.
Thank you. How about you, Mr. Falvey? Any thoughts on this?
No substantive additions. I really feel that Mr. Bauer's observations probably best reflect my thoughts on this. I'm just curious about what efforts have been putting into looking to retain the existing structure. And I would have a hard time, I think, voting to support the demolition of a structure like that without further evidence that there's a significant structural problem with that. Looks like it could be a very interesting property to do over and continue to be a solid piece of property in the neighborhood, enhancing the neighborhood further. So I really don't have much more than that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting collection of thoughts in this particular house. So it's true that with a restoration, or it's not a binary thing. It's always possible to save the building. It's a question of how much work is it? Does at some point just one have to make a decision? It's cheaper, it's easier more efficient to do it a certain way. It affords other opportunities that you couldn't in terms of fixing other aspects, like to make it more efficient, blah, blah, blah. This particular house, it is a front-facing gable, as most houses are. It's not I was just taking a virtual tour. To the left of it, or to the west, there's a whole row of houses that appear to have been built at the same time by the same developer with the same pattern. Maybe the first one isn't, but the ones after, it's sort of a, I wouldn't call it an anomaly because it's more or less the same form as the others, but it doesn't have the same arrangement of bay, it doesn't have a front corner bay. So it's not as with sometimes when you get a row of triple deckers and they're all the same and you take one out and you're suddenly missing a tooth kind of thing. It's different that way. It's already a distinct module within the streetscape. And it's not in a particularly distinct architectural style. It's simple. I had it added on porch, but it is relatively intact formally. It has all of its original massing and the windows seem to have been unchanged in terms of location. So, that's kind of just batting around issues there. I don't know that I'm totally sold on significance. I would be curious to see if the owners want to tell us a little bit more about their decision-making in deciding this ought to be taken down as opposed to salvage. You sort of touched on it at the beginning, but maybe you could add more to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks everyone for the thoughts so far. I think one thing we kind of noticed is, as I think you noted, that a bit of it does maintain some of the original structure, but It is somewhat simple, especially up on the top too. A lot of any existing detailing that was there is more or less completely rotted out. I'm not sure how easy it is to tell from the pictures, but the third floor especially, all of kind of the existing wood trim is pretty rotted out. So replacing or restoring any of that would be pretty challenging, if not impossible. Would pretty much need to be replaced. Regarding, I guess, the extent to which options were reviewed, we have been kind of looking at this process for 5 months, reviewed with, I believe, 3 or 4 different contractors, specifically one who had been involved before in kind of restoration of older homes. And kind of basically what we were told is with the amount of, yes, we could be done, but with how much that would have to be taken out, it would be basically unrecognizable from the front. Basically, we need to remove all of the aluminum siding, replacing all of the trim. The windows are mostly not original either. So it could be restored, but it wouldn't really maintain a lot of the original character, was kind of a lot of the kind of feedback we got, in addition to it being substantially more expensive to do so. Is a lot of the thoughts, I guess, on those questions.
Okay. Thanks. One thing I think at this stage, I don't really know to what extent we are allowed to take into consideration savability. I don't know, technically speaking, for assessing significance in its own right.
Correct. That would be our next step, of preferably preserved, that we could think about some of those things.
Yeah. Anyway, that's just food for thought.
Ms. Checkowitz, do you have anything to share on that?
I agree
Yes.
with- oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you. Yeah, the only things that can be used to look at this, whether or not something is determined historically significant or not, are those items listed in the demolition ordinance, which are whether or not it's associated with historic, important people, historic significance, or the actual building itself and its importance. So those are the 2 items, and you'll find them at the end of your report. As Vice Chair Kelly said, a determination of preferably preserved, you can then look at additional items in determining its whether or not the determination of preferably preserved should be voted for. I'm out of words here. Voted for, essentially.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, does anybody else have anything else to add, or we feel comfortable voting in our respective ways?
I move that we vote to find 17 Hudson Street historically significant.
I second that.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Vice Chair Kelly for significance. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, no, and I'll vote no.
No. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call. Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
I'll vote Mr. Chagnon,
No.
and I'll vote no. So there we have it. The motion carries, and so homeowners, Nicole and Michael, that we'll just have a hearing next month in which we review this again and to determine whether this structure ought to be preferably preserved. And I think the only thing you might want to add to this is maybe more backup on the condition, some of the information you might have gotten from various contractors and stuff like that. Otherwise, I don't know that there's much more homework to do. Maybe someone else can fill me in on that.
If
That
it's,
sounds about right.
yeah, if it's, been determined that it's structurally compromised or something like that, having an engineer's report to that effect would be helpful, not just a general contractor who would be doing the work, but someone else who's has specific expertise.
And let me add to that, that what would be helpful from a structural engineer is not, what we often see is you might as well tear it down, it's cheaper than fixing it, but something much more specific about what would be involved in fixing it and why tearing it down is preferable, other than merely that it's might be cheaper and easier to just do that.
Thank you. One thing that we sort of bat around in the past is we don't, certainly at this stage, we never consider what would replace it. But I remember that way back, Mr. Bauer, when you were chair, you mentioned that during the preferably preserved status, there's something implied by preferable as a judgment. It's preferable that it be compared to some other outcome, which would be replacement by a certain building. And that we often do see plans for what would replace it. And we still have the opinion that that is something within our purview.
It's my opinion that it is.
Okay, I agree with that. So if that being the case, I think it would be helpful to see what you have planned for it. You said you have architectural drawings.
Yeah, we can come prepared to share that next meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, by the way, I believe we have to make findings as to our reasons.
Oh, yeah. I'm always skipping over that. Okay, so would someone like to propose some findings?
Sure. This is a characteristic front gable house of the vernacular. Might have been Italianate, might have been Queen Anne, which vernacular houses of this period are typically only in small detailings. The structure is intact, the form and massing pretty close to the original, even though the siding appear to be replacements, but the fenestration appears to be original. And it, while it is not or identical to the other houses on the street, it's part of a pattern of the, and I think significantly to the streetscape.
I think that's a very good summary. I move that we vote to adopt those findings.
Second that.
Sorry, I was muted. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Actually, I guess I'd have to be opposed, wouldn't I?
I don't
Am I allowed
know
to-
that you do. I mean, I think, is that a good summary of why the commission as a whole?
I think so, based on what I heard at the
Yeah.
comments, that summarizes what you said. So I would support that, those motion findings.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may through you, anyone who voted against historic significance should not vote in favor of findings.
Oh,
Would
okay.
seem inherently contradictory. Okay,
Yes.
fine. So I'll vote against those findings. The rotten.
Listen, I'm willing to follow that.
So,
For
roll call.
my opinion is it is not contradictory, and people should use their judgments and obviously take recommendations from staff. In my opinion, is not intrinsically contradictory, and sometimes when I have been minority in these positions, I have not voted to adopt findings, but sometimes I have voted to adopt them.
All right, well, it doesn't technically matter in this case because they'll be approved, so I'll vote no. So let's do a roll call. Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
I'll vote no. And Mr. Shagnon?
I believe I'm also voting no in that case.
Okay. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on our agenda is HPC DMO 2022.34 627 Somerville Avenue. The applicant is Mai Luo, the owner of 635 Somerville Avenue LLC, and the applicant seeks to demolish a principal structure constructed a minimum of 75 years ago. Do we have an applicant here tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. May Luo, you have been unmuted on our end. You will need to unmute yourself to speak. And if anyone else is here for your team, please have them raise their hand and I can go ahead and unmute them.
Yes, we have Evan. Our architect will be speaking on our behalf.
All right. Evan Stellman, you have been unmuted on our end.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Evan Stellman from Colsa Design. Office is at 17 Ivalou Street in Somerville, and I am a Ward 3 resident. Wendy, may I share my screen real quick?
Yes, give me 1 second. All right, you now have permission to share your
I
screen.
don't have a presentation prepared, but I just want to walk through the Google Street View as I talk about the structures. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay, so we're looking at the structure at 627 Somerville Avenue. It is this two-story brick structure about 3/4 of the way between Union Square and Porter Square. So this two-story structure was constructed somewhere between 1900 and 1920, in addition to this wood structure that stretches along to Pittman Street. The lot is pretty large. It occupies this entire space all the way up to Pittman, and then down and over across Belmont Street, and then back to Somerville Avenue. There's also this L that fronts on Belmont Street that was constructed around 1950, and I'll just zoom in and show you the street view there. And that's just a single-story brick structure. We're proposing to demolish this as well as the property that you reviewed in your last meeting to make space for a new development. Oops. And that's everything I have. I'm happy to answer any questions or address any comments that you have.
Thank you. Let's take public comment on this case before we proceed. If you members of the public would like to speak, please raise your hand and staff will unmute you.
Yes. All right, Mr. Chairman, I am going through the list, see if anyone has their hand raised to speak on this item. Each member of the public is given 2 minutes to speak. All right, I'm going to do one more pass through, see if anyone else has their hands raised. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I do not see any members of the public with their hands raised. You may proceed with closing the public comment.
Okay. Close the public comment portion of this case. And just to clarify, this is the extent you had an aerial view. I don't know if that could be popped back up. This includes that where your mouse is to the right, there's the slightly set back building to the right, but way further back. Is it also that's the auto center, the Toucan? I can't quite read that. Does it include that building as well? Yes, the one you're hovering over.
Toucan's included in that. I do have the staff report. Yeah, so the Toucan building was not part of the 1920s structure, but it looks like it doesn't look like it was part of the 1950s either. I can't tell for sure.
But that is part of your project.
Yes,
okay.
Part of the proposal. I'm not sure if it's
We're considering it.
But yeah.
It was a building in 1980s, the Toucan, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite the hodgepodge.
Yeah.
Well, I have some thoughts, but first, I feel I should defer to everybody else. So who has thoughts on this?
So my feeling is the portion of the building that faces Somerville Avenue is so hodgepodge at this point as to be not very compelling. I'm more intrigued by the brick structure that faces onto Belmont Street. Do we have a specific age on that? I didn't see I'm now not finding information on that in the report. I don't know if Ms. Chekowitz can help us with that piece, or if the applicants happen to know. Is it within our purview to actually discuss, or is that a foregone conclusion because it's too young?
Vice Chair Kelly, if you could just repeat which section of the building you are discussing.
The brick section that faces onto Belmont Street, that's behind 635.
So it does appear that it was likely built between, so we know that it was built during 1925 and 1955, but we don't know when. So
Okay, I'm
in
now seeing.
safekeeping, I would mostly vote on that front brick building facing on Somerville Ave, which is what triggered the requirement. Because we can't say for certain if that other brick building was built in time.
Okay. Okay. So then, yeah, I don't feel there's a whole lot to 627 Somerville Ave that remains. Even, the brickwork is not great looking any longer and appears to have significant modifications. The windows are super weird. The doors are super weird. So, it doesn't look like original fenestration. So those are my not very well articulated thoughts.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I agree about the Somerville Avenue building. It is obviously not in great condition, and there are lots of patching and repair work in the bricks. But the basic structure and the basic brickwork patterns are all still there. It's a pleasant living building with the like essentially original fenestration, at least on the second floor, even though on the left-hand side, 3 out of the 4 groups of windows have been replaced by modern windows, but filling the same hole. So it's pretty easy to imagine what it would look like if the original wooden windows were put back in there. The first floor seems more questionable. Looks like maybe storefronts or something that got infilled with brick. Does anybody know what the story is on the first floor?
This is Evan from Caltha Design. I'm not sure what the story is on the first floor there, but I do know that there was a fire in 1990 and the structure was rebuilt before that.
Mr. Chairman, through you, from the looks of it, the original building had multiple storefronts and that it was rebuilt and enclosed at a later date. But it does look like those had storefronts originally.
Right, and so the piers are there. And again, although there's brick infill, it's pretty easy to imagine what it would have looked like when the original storefronts were there.
I wonder whether the whether the original center bay there was an entrance to the residential on the upper floors initially. And I suspect it's entirely different on the inside now than it was before it all became residences. But
Yeah, I bet you're right, TJ, that just looking at the elevation here, had a limestone or a cast stone number plate set in. And yeah, it's interesting hearing your thoughts on that because I'm sort of oddly on the fence with this too. I totally agree it's a hodgepodge. The wacko collection of buildings, which in some ways is kind of cool, but it doesn't represent a concise, distinct building. I do feel like actually on the side street as well, I'm almost duty bound to support keeping this just because it's a brick factory building that's rapidly disappearing in the city, or commercial building. It isn't in great shape. As you mentioned, the facade has been filled in those first floor bays. They could be scooped out and restored theoretically. It looks like that the pediment, the portico has been, parapet's been rebuilt at some point. So I don't know. I feel like there are parts of this that I would like to keep. As a whole, it's kind of not so much. Who hasn't weighed in? Ryan, what do you think?
Mixed thoughts to Sarah Parks. I mean, there's something very charming about it, as crazy as it and hacked up as it is. And like you concerned about some of these great old properties that exist in this way. And you reference American Tube Works and a number of those great old brick buildings around there. But I'm not clear on like the significance of what industries or what businesses were operating on. I wasn't able to make sense in reading this, so I'm mixed. I'm mixed. I could go either way, I think, on this.
Yeah. I mean, my understanding and interpretation of the staff report is that the brick building that's on the screen right now was probably potentially ground floor retail, but primarily residential, and really is only that front chunk, that almost everything behind that postdates this building in any case. But there were other things going on, and then the factory building or the warehouse, whatever it was, got built in behind, and we're not quite sure whether that falls on an early enough construction date to even fall into our purview on this. So it really, I think the question is mostly about this particular front building that we're looking at on the shared screen. And I guess my take on it is there's something kind of interesting in it in a historical sense, but what it would have been that was interesting to me is that, what its original configuration probably was, with ground floor retail and a central entrance to apartments above it. And that's, you really have to have a sense that it's there to even see that in this, to me. Otherwise, it looks like an unremarkable brick building that someone has done something to numerous times over the decades. I don't know. I think my feeling on it is that while there's the ghost of something interesting there, I don't know that there's enough of it left to be compelling to me.
Mm-hmm.
Other than, the massing of the structure as a whole, but even the internal massing and you can, as Scott mentioned, you can kind of see the brick piers happening between the storefront bays and kind of interpret what it was, but I don't know.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Ask, although it is not, I think, relevant to the historically significant decision we need to make tonight, but the corner building, what we're presented with is sort of back-to-back L's, but the corner building, which is not part of tonight's at 635, we looked at, I think, last month.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering,
Yeah,
is this all part of the same project?
Yes, we're planning on merging the lots and then re-subdividing it into doing two larger projects.
Okay, as I said, I don't think that bears on significance, but potentially could on preferably preserved when and if we get to that stage. But
Right.
I just want clarification. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I see. I'm looking at the front facade there, and I can totally visualize what that would have looked like in the day with some cool, and the storefronts. Each one would have had a nice entryway, and that probably was the central entry for the upstairs units. That part of it's all gone. And so we're left with a square shape that has some interesting, fairly basic, but interesting brickwork, stuff like that. You can go around the corner and see a similar kind of thing going on with just in the old steel windows that are highly rusted. So I'm not sure whether or not enough really remains in this to kind of call it significant.
Is that blue garage building immediately to the right of that with the 3 windows on top of that? That is part of this overall structure, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. It's an add-on from the 80s.
Got it.
And then it sounds like if you scroll to your right a little bit more, set back, there's an additional structure that's coming. Well, the yellow.
Yeah, this
part
is
of
just a small shed, and then I can zoom out to the aerial view.
Entire spot. Yeah.
And so this building to the right was the 80s add-on. I'm not sure when that corner there was added.
Okay. And the entire Laronga building next to it's gone, right? That's becoming a new development.
Yes,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
Okay. Well, does anybody else have thoughts they want to add before we just sort of throw it to a vote?
To clarify before we go to a vote, it's just about the front structure at 627. Everything else is presumed to be outside of our purview by age.
Yeah.
Oh, was the side one on the side street too new then?
Yeah.
The one that faces, I see, okay. I missed that.
It sounded like we don't actually know for sure
All right.
whether.
Mr. Chairman, yes, we can't determine, like definitively say what date the building facing onto the side street was constructed. So to be safe with any vote, you should keep it to the front building facing Somerville Ave. There's nothing preventing you from including the side building, but that does open up some questions as to when and if the vote would be valid if there is a chance to figure out that date. So we could really only have purview over buildings constructed 1947 and earlier. And we only have one satellite image of it in 1955. Previous maps don't show it.
Right. Well, I'm not hearing any other thoughts on this, so maybe we should go to a vote.
I move that we vote to find 627 Somerville Avenue historically significant. A no vote would indicate it is not significant.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion for significance put forward by Vice Chair Kelly. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
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 Okay, we'll do a roll call. Mr. Falvey,
No.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
No.
Mr. Chagnon,
No.
and I'll vote no. So there we have it. We need findings still, and I guess it's up to the no vote people to adopt the findings since we're in the majority. So I would just put forward that the primary thing for me was it had been too heavily altered, the facade. So not lack of, what do you call that?
Yeah, lacks original integrity, does not contribute to the streetscape.
Due to the lack of integrity, because the massing, well, it's just findings, yeah. The minutes would reflect our discussion around our decision, but I think that was, the finding would be that it was an integrity issue. Okay, All in favor, we have a motion to adopt these findings?
I move that
Move
we
to
adopt
adopt.
those findings.
Second by, did I see your hand there, Mr. Chagnon?
Sure.
Okay. All in favor of adopting the findings?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'll do a roll call. Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
I abstain.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Chagnon,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. Okay, folks, thank you for bringing the project to us tonight.
Thank you.
The next case, since I live within 300 feet of this address, I've been advised to recuse myself. So I'm going to disappear and turn the chair position over to Vice Chair Kelly. Willing?
So we will move on to.
And what do I just disappear? Should I re-log in to do for this?
So,
Mr. Chairman, through you, you just need to turn off your video.
Okay.
Thank you. So next up, we will discuss the determination of significance for 63 Putnam Street, the garage structure. The applicant is FL Development LLC, owners James Sareva. I apologize if I'm botching that pronunciation, and Philip Sareva Sr., representatives of the estate of Joseph Sareva. The applicant seeks to demolish an accessory structure constructed a minimum of 75 years ago. And this is APC DMO 2022.37. Are the applicants here with us to share?
Yes. Vice Chair Kelly, so Adam Dash is here representing the applicant. I have unmuted him.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
Yes, thank you.
I would also note that I'm Adam Dash, 48 Grove Street, Davis Square, Somerville. I'm representing FL Development LLC, which is the applicant here. Fraser Allen, the manager of the applicant, should also be here. But this application, as was stated, relates only to the demolition of the existing garage at 63 Putnam Street. Applicant is not seeking demolition review of the house. As the staff report states, this garage appears to have been built in 1884, then enlarged in 1895, then added on to around 1925, and you end up with this sort of added on hodgepodge that has no architectural intent or style and is really just a jumble of random add-ons over a period of time. And I understand you may not want to get into this factor this evening. However, if I could just say that applicant did have Todd Headley, a structural engineer, inspect the garage and write a report that you have. If I could just, before I go back into the significance piece, just read the last two sentences, which are, there is an overwhelming amount of temporary structural items supporting the original structure, so much so it seems the original structure has little to no capacity to support itself. If not for the temporary works, it is our opinion that the structure would have collapsed by now. So just putting that out there. The garage is not, I would note the garage is not associated with any historical persons, events, history, architect, and the applicant is not seeking to demo the house, but does need to demolish that garage due to it being in danger. This is in the rear. It is not all that visible from the street. And I would note that there is no style or integrity of the garage, either architecturally or structurally. An applicant asked the commission to find the garage to not be significant.
Thank you. Mr. Dash, if there's nothing else, then Ms. Checkwitz, could we open it to public comment?
No, I mean, I'm here to answer questions at this point, sure.
Thank you.
All right. Madam Chair, if you could just open the floor for public comment formally.
Oh. And now we would like to hear from anyone in the public who would like to speak on the garage at 63 Putnam Street.
Any members of the public wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand and you will be unmuted for a 2-minute comment period. All right, Lorinda Bedingfield, You are unmuted on our end. You are still muted on your side. You will need to unmute yourself to be able to speak.
Am I muted still?
No,
No.
we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. That's great. Okay. I live next door. I'm at 61 Putnam, and I'm not. I mean, I if they want to tear the barn down, it's a barn. There was a barn in that corner on each of these 3 properties. What I just wanted to offer was some information about the properties. That's all. I live at 61. 59, 61, and 63 were built by 2 brothers. That's why all 3 houses are the exact same style. Each house had a barn in that corner of the yard. Because they ran some kind of a, I don't know, it was like eggs and milk and butter delivery services. I think it's all in Beyond the Neck. And you guys probably know about it, but I just wanted to listen tonight to find out what's going on over there since I live next door. And I am speaking to you from my barn that I live in, that's in the back of my property in that corner. So the barn that's being demolished is pretty close to me. I would say it's about 3 feet away. So who's ever demolishing it, if you get to do it, please be careful, because I live in this one. So that's pretty much my.
Thank you. Ms. Checkwitz, is there anything else you see?
Any members of the public who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand and you'll be unmuted. All right, Madam Chair, I do not see any of the members of the public with their hand raised. You may close the public comment.
I would like to close the public comment period for 63 Putnam Street and move on to commissioner discussions. Do people have particular thoughts?
I think the original carriage house portion is actually one of the more interesting outbuildings in Somerville here, where it mimics the Italianate front that's on the house, and then use that for the door into the loft.
Yep.
So looking at it purely in architectural terms, it actually seems to me to have some significance. The later add-ons seem to me to have no significance at all, and I understand from Attorney Dash that the structural engineer says if you take away those pieces that add nothing, the whole rest of it falls down. But just looking at it architecturally actually is kind of intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Falvey, do you have any thoughts on?
I noticed the similarity in the design with the house, and I thought that was interesting, and how they're kind of synchronized that way. Yeah, I agree with Mr. Bauer's comments about the additions that were put on afterwards, but then also hearing that there were 3 of these structures, or for the family members that were engaged in the business of providing dairy products or whatever such. I think there's some significance there to me, and a very interesting part, important part of the history of Somerville right there in the structure in and of itself.
Yeah.
Absent the structural problems which are of concern, I clearly can see significance in the structure, just architecturally and how it appears, as well as the use of the building, the prior owners, how they, the brothers or relatives or whoever used these barns to provide goods to people in the area. So
Yeah.
my thoughts.
Yeah, I would concur with both of those, both Mr. Falvey's and Mr. Bauer's thoughts in many ways. I do find it kind of interesting looking at the history of the outbuildings back there, that the true original that matched the other two houses in the group, to hear the neighbors' recollection of it, and also looking at the old Sanborn maps. The cornermost piece, which is not the part that echoes the front building, was the very original that shows up in the 1884. But I mean, 1895, and as staff mentioned in the report, all three of the pieces are old enough that they're significantly, looked at as a group, old enough to be considered. I think it's interesting that, as Mr. Bauer mentioned, somebody added onto that original little barn and carriage house with some real clear intent and purpose to echo the front structure, which is very, very interesting to me.
Yeah.
That it was an addition that really was done with a whole lot of purpose and almost takes over as the dominant feature of the whole structure.
Yeah, and it's visible, it's not only that center sort of hayloft gable, but the side gable, whether you're coming from the either side of the house, you're seeing kind of a mimicking that seems very intentional with the architecture of the house itself. I guess it's the west portion that seems the most important, that the south structure is, doesn't really have anything to it, but that west structure is important. Does anyone else have any additional thoughts? I would entertain a motion.
Move that we find the garage structure to be historically significant.
Second that.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion to find the garage structure significant, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed to finding it significant, say nay. We'll do a roll call. Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Mr. Shagnam,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. So in terms of findings, what would people like to indicate?
I think I would say that it is both associated with the broad economic and social history of the city in terms of the findings about the connections to the industry, as well as architecturally significant on its own merits due to its connection with the main house and the style of architectural design, which is unusual for a carriage house.
Anything else to add, Mr. Falvey or Mr. Bauer?
I would add the connection with dairy products and the information that we got from Ms. Betting, the four identical houses.
Three. It was 3 houses.
Yes, thank you for correcting me.
59, 61, and 63 Putnam Street.
Although I will point out that in reference to the group of 3 houses, that this particular garage structure, the parts that we have stated we're most interested in are not common to the other 2 properties of the group. I think that the broader context of it is still valid.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
All
Second
those
that.
in favor of the findings just discussed, please say aye.
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 And those opposed, say nay. We'll do roll call. Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Mr. Shagnon,
Yes.
and I will say yes. Thank you very much to Mr. Dash and the applicants. We will see you at our next, or Ms. Chekowitz, at what meeting will we be able to review preferably preserved status? Will it be next month?
Madam Chair, through you, I will have to check on whether or not certain things required for the second meeting have been submitted so far. And if not, they'll need to be submitted to be on that meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, and for the $250, you'll certainly get that, Wendy, in time. And if we could do November 15th, that would be greatly appreciated due to some timeline issues on the applicant's end. Thank you.
Thank you. And shall we bring Chair Parks back in?
I'm here. Amazing what you can do on the internet these days. Thank you, Vice Chair Kelly, for taking over there. The next case, which is our last significance case, is HPC.DMO 2022.40. The address is 11 Chester Place. The applicant is Jim Chen. The owner is Hong Ying Li. The applicant seeks to demolish a principal structure constructed a minimum of 75 years ago. We have an applicant here tonight.
Anyone from the applicant team here for this item, please raise your hand and you will be unmuted. Mr. Chairman, I do not see anyone here with their hands raised, nor do I see the listed applicant or owner. I'm going to look through again. I do not see anyone. In this instance, the applicant is not here, it would appear. Nor did they submit a continuance form. There is a discussion on whether or not best practice would be to continue or to hear it. My recommendation for now is just to push this item farther down, and I'll see if I can get a hold of the applicant in the meantime.
Okay. We are ultimately obligated to review this case if it's not continued. Okay.
Correct.
All right, so we're going to delay this case and we'll move on to the alterations to local historic district properties. And the first of these, I believe, is one that Vice Chair Kelly wanted to recuse herself for. It's 24 Warren Ave.
Yes, so I live within 300 feet of the property, so I will excuse myself.
And just for the record, having been made aware of the 300 feet rule, I double checked myself and I am more than 300 feet from 17 Hudson. Not by a lot, but more than 300.
Yeah, up until, I mean, I've been on the commission for what, I don't know, 15 years. I can't remember anymore, but that I was just told last hearing that I was given some paperwork that from the mass people in charge of such things, that's an issue. So going forward, we'll have to be a little more attentive of that. Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Chagnon. So
I am in the
regarding this case, I do not live within 300 feet of it. So HBC ALT 2022.53, the address is 24 Warren Avenue. The applicant is Emma Rose and the owner is Marianne Thompson. The applicant seeks a certificate of appropriateness for after-the-fact approval of hardscape alterations. Do we have an applicant here tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Marianne Thompson is here. If there's anyone else from your team that would like to speak on this item, please either give us their name or have them raise their hands. But Marianne, you are unmuted.
Should I speak?
Oh yeah, please. Hi, good evening. Just give us the quick rundown of
Okay.
what you're up to.
Hi. I'm the owner, and my daughter Emma Rose lives on the ground floor. And we didn't realize that we needed to get historic commission approval to make. Basically, she took the bricks that were already there, and she refigured them to make a different shaped patio. And I did the work herself. And they turned the granite curbing, a piece of the granite curbing perpendicular to the wall. And once we found out that that the hardscape was part of the purview of the Historic Commission, we did a drawing that we submitted to you showing that we'll turn, we would like to turn the granite curbing back so it aligns with where it was. And we had taken out a concrete curb along the driveway, and we'll replace that with some stone, a little stone wall. I mean, we could replace it with concrete if you preferred, but we thought stone would be nicer. And then we'd like to keep the patio the way it is because it's actually really nice the way Emma built it. We did get the recommendation from you guys. We read the report that you think we should replace any flagstone pieces that are in the patio with brick, which I think we're fine. That's a good idea. So basically, we'd like to restore it to how you guys want it, but we didn't, and we're really sorry that we didn't realize that the hardscaping aspect was part of Historic Commission approval.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, we'll open it up to public comment. I think that's it. So any members of the public who'd like to speak about this case, please indicate by raising your hand and the staff will unmute you.
Mr. Chairman, I am looking through our list, and to reiterate, anyone who'd like to speak for a 2-minute public comment period, please raise your hand. All right, Mr. Chairman, I do not see anyone else with their hand raised. You may close the public comment.
All right, I'll close the public comment portion of the hearing. We have our landscape architect with us tonight. Might have some thoughts, but just the overall synopsis, I think I understand everything. It's basically that you salvaged brick that was on the walkway leading to the patio to change the layout of the patio and the brick pattern. And then you're also proposing to put in a stone curb along the side of the driveway. The driveway is going to remain though, right? The concrete driveway?
Yes, it'll stay.
Okay. And then the flagstone, you mentioned something at the end of your introduction about removing the flagstone. I didn't quite catch that.
Oh, well, we got a report from the Historic Commission saying that the flagstone may not be appropriate for the house because we had put in some bits. They're small bits of flagstone in the yard, and we can take those out and replace them with brick if you would like that.
Mr. Chair.
Sorry, yes.
Through you, just as a clarification, that was the staff report that was submitted. Was the recommendation was to remove the flagstone and replace it back with brick. And then another note I would like to make is there's some feedback coming through. So if everyone can mute themselves when they are not speaking, that might help with that problem. Thank you.
What is that? I see, and I'm looking at a picture in the staff report. So for extending for connecting the patio with the street, in lieu of the flagstone, you just pick a brick that is close to that other brick as possible. With that, I understand you're probably out of brick from the site, so you'd have to just find something new that looks old.
Right, or find some old brick. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what we would do.
I could say what Mr. Chagnon thinks. I think the patio itself looks fine, and connecting it, I think that would look a little bit nicer because it just design-wise, it connects to the end of the thoroughfare and all that. I'm all on board with that. But I understand it. But who on the commission wants to go? I'm jumping the gun.
Well, given that I've been invited to several times, I'm happy to
name dropped.
I think I would agree with both staff's report and Chair Parks's comments that it does feel like for the era this came from, that pathway likely would have been brick rather than the fieldstone flagging, which should work just fine. To replace that, which the applicant has said that they are, open to considering. I do have one point of clarification question. In the end of the staff report that was submitted to us, there's an Allen block wall fieldstone retaining wall brochure that I'm not sure whether that was included in error or whether that relates to something in the application that I'm not seeing.
Mr. Chairman, through you, yes, the applicant is requesting, there had been a concrete curb retaining wall along the driveway that was removed. They're requesting to replace it with a fieldstone retaining curb along the driveway again.
Okay, I was interpreting the staff description of the fieldstone retaining curb as being like longer pieces of stone, more of a curb element rather than a unit block system, which is what the facing unit, which they're cast concrete units, which would then need some sort of a capstone and so forth. And for something that's only, maybe 9 to 12 inches high at the most, it looks like. Well, there's 2 risers, so might benefit of the doubt 14 inches high. It seems like a unit block would be an odd choice there. I mean, I'd recommend looking into simply getting some salvaged granite curbing or something of the sort.
Right, that's what we would do. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think, you could get 8-foot lengths of salvaged curb somewhere that would match very well what's along the front face of the property. And that would tie in a lot better than using a unit block product like the Allen block in this context.
Yeah, that would be much better. Yes, that's exactly what we do. That's a good idea.
Okay. Any other thoughts from other commission members?
Support Commissioner Chagnon's suggestions on how to address next steps with this.
I think if there's no other comment, we could proceed with a vote. Before doing that, on the brick selection, to what extent do we want to define what's used now, other than saying a salvaged or new brick that looks like the old? Is that something we could just leave with staff to review? We don't obviously don't have a product in front of us. officially approved, but I think we get the gist of what it ought to be.
Yeah, I would be comfortable with, requesting that the applicant present that to preservation staff for final approval.
Mr. Chairman, through you, if I could just ask for clarification, is your preference for brick only or pavers that appear like brick and staff will make that determination, or is it just between newer, older brick and how that compares to what's there?
I think, I mean, in perfect world, it'd be something that looks just like the brick that's already there. It just continues that to the street. That's a salvage brick scenario. I don't know, maybe Mr. Chagnon would know better than I if that's a realistic hope or if there's a newer brick that looks like that, that's not an official paver, that's just brick.
We're fine with going with salvaged. And we can work with staff to make sure it matches.
Okay.
I would say there are new brick products out there that are comparable in appearance to the older stuff. If you end up having to go with new brick and you need any leads on that, I'm happy to assist staff with helping recommend possible sources and so forth. Same thing with the salvaged granite curbing, if you're trying to track that down. Okay. There are places out there that have collections of salvaged curbing. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think that for the voting or for the motion, it would just sort of salvage brick or new if required to be approved by staff, that sort of thing. Sounds like the applicant is on the right path with this. Sorry about the really bad pun there. So anybody want to put forward a motion?
So let's see, this is for a certificate of appropriateness, right? Is that what we'd be going for? With retroactive permission to rebuild the brick patio in the new layout as has been done, but with the conditions that the granite curbing be restored to the original alignment, that the concrete curb be replaced with salvage granite or similar material, and that the flagstone walk be replaced with salvaged or new brick as required by feasibility, with the materials for the granite curbing and the brick walkway to be reviewed by commission staff.
Second that.
Okay, all in favor of the motion put forward by Mr. Chagnon, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We'll do a roll call. Mr. Falvey?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Mr. Bauer, you appear to be muted.
I'm sorry, yes.
Chagnon?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. There you have it, folks. Thanks for bringing your project to us tonight. Lovely house.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we can bring Vice Chair Kelly back. And I'll ask staff in the meantime, is the applicant for 11 Chester Place come yet?
I haven't seen them join, but let me go through the list again. Is the applicant team or anyone representing the applicant for 11 Chester Place, please raise your hand. I do not see anyone raising their hands, Mr. Chairman. I did email the applicant just to let them know that they need to be here. And I have also communicated with my director, who said in the chance that they are not here, that the best course of action would be to continue the item. But for now, I think we can just move it farther down after the next item.
Okay. All right, well, that being the case, then the next item on our agenda is HPC ALT 2022.56. The address is 101 School Street. Applicant is Brian Militana. The owner is Jane Messenger and Ben Messenger. And the applicant seeks a certificate of appropriateness to alter an LHC property by removing existing window openings to install a doorway. Do we have an applicant here tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Benjamin Messenger, and I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. I have unmuted you on our end. You'll need to unmute yourself. And Brian Militana, you have also been unmuted on our end.
Hello, I'm Brian. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
And Ben, are you on the call?
I am.
Great. Do you want to get us started, Ben?
Yeah, I'll just sort of, I wanted to just say a few words about kind of the intention of the alterations that we have in mind. So we moved into this building about 10 years ago, my wife and I. We absolutely love it. We love our neighbors. One of the things about it is that it is north facing, so it is kind of quite dark in our unit. And about 5 years ago, we had a daughter, and so we're, part of the intention behind the renovation was to reconfigure the space and kind of make it, give everyone kind of a little bit more room. One of the great features of this unit is the porch, and right now there's no kind of egress or ingress to the porch itself. We have to kind of go through a common space in the hallway. So part of the intention of this was to sort of make that more available to us kind of as a family, and also to kind of just open up the whole space and give it a little bit more of an open feel. And I will turn it over to Brian for the rest of this.
Hi, so I would like to say a few words, and I would like to be able to pull up some of the materials about the drawings we submitted. I have them on my screen. Is it possible to share my screen?
Yes, Brian, I'm giving you the permission to be a presenter. You should now be able to share your screen.
Hello?
Mr. Chairman,
Hello, can you all hear me? I was muted.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that. So this is the building in question. It's a 6-unit multifamily building.
Can we ask you to put this into presentation mode so we can see it better?
Yes. I do not know why this link is blurry, but this is the building in question. I just wanted to show you one aerial. This is the front facade is seen from School Street. The rear facade is seen from Prescott Street. It's seen at a distance of 175 feet through a neighbor's driveway. There's only a partial view, and it's obscured by patios that are not original. This is their unit. The detailing of the patios are not original to the building. And also the windows here are not original. These are the windows that are in question that we would like to introduce a door. So our goals for this renovation were to maintain 2 bedrooms while sort of kind of like packing in an open living space in the rear. And in order to sort of extend this living space, we were hoping to do a 4-panel sliding door so that we could let in light, but also not obstruct the patio for a furniture layout. This is an elevation of what we proposed. The staff noted in their review that the sliding door is not in keeping with the period, and that the layout, among other things, is not consistent with the other units. They made a recommendation to take a look at Unit 6, which previously introduced patio doors of a swinging type to the building. What Unit 6 did was they kept the standalone window, and within the bay of 3 windows, they introduced a patio door and preserved 1 window. The staff is basically recommending that we do the same to our unit. We're minimal to this recommendation, and we appreciate the staff's guidance. We love the historic character of the existing building. We would like to ask the commission to consider 3 patio doors instead of 2 patio doors with a window attached to it, because we feel like it's maybe visibly awkward. So we would basically maintain the existing trim around the windows, but introduce 2 operable patio doors and a fixed. We feel that this would maintain the design of the facade and would be basically imperceptible to anyone from the street, given the handrails and the fact that it's not possible to see the whole building at the same time. And also, if you were to see it, it would be at a distance of 175 feet. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Cool. So with that, then we could open this up for public comment. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak about this? If so, raise your hand and staff will unmute you.
Mr. Chairman, I am looking at the list of attendees. I do not see anyone's hand raised at this time. Look one more time. No other members of the public have their hands raised. You may close the public comment.
I'll close the public comment portion of this case. Toss it around as a commission. Anybody have any initial thoughts or want to start off?
We just get clarification on where this property resides. Is it visible from a public right of way, or is it actually wedged between 2 other streets? And it seemed like
it's visible from School Street. This is the front facade. There's no street on its side, but a sliver of it can be seen through someone else's driveway, through their rear yard, and through our rear yard. And this is that view.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I drove by it and I live a few blocks away, and I would agree it's very minimally visible. I mean, yes, you can see it, but you do have to be looking pretty intently to figure out just what's going on in that back elevation, especially with the deep shadows.
Yeah, that's one of the things that it's not only that it's so distant from the neighboring street, but that the porches themselves are so deep in this building that the ability to perceive what's going on with the fenestration would be really minimal. So I'm less concerned about this than I would be for other structures that, the concerns about consistency between the 6 units and things like that, just because, as Mr. Militana shared, you can't really see the whole rear of the building at once. You're kind of catching glimpses of it. And it is so recessed from that porch railing that it's hard to really discern what's happening. So
Thanks. To me, the only of the things that matter on that back would be, I guess, just the rhythm of the right, the window closest to the corner that sort of lines up vertically. And so to get to the proposal that the applicant had regarding the way that that triple window is broken down, it really doesn't matter to me if those are 3 windows or 3 panels or whatever. It's just the fact that there's a solid there and then some wall space and then that the window on the right, the 3 that line up vertically.
yes.
So I would be okay with some pretty broad slicing and dicing of that triple window. Like three French doors would be fine to me.
I agree. I think what Mr. Militana described is the 2 moving doors and fixed panel in place of the 3 windows. And even, as long as it remains in the same location, I would not have issue with there being a door in place of the single window. But I do think placement is important and that does remain in line with the units above, that it not be moved. But I don't think it's going to be so obvious as to whether it's, a 2/1 or a solid glass.
This is an elevation possible.
Yeah, that's fine by me.
Exactly.
I definitely agree with all the comments that have been made and think it's
I'd agree also, yeah.
Just to clarify, it would be 2 swinging and 1 fixed. Just, yep. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, unless, I don't know, can you do a flush bolt? No, I guess you couldn't really do that. Yeah. So you would in actual fact have a slightly larger mullion between the fixed and the swinging, so you can handle the hinges.
Yes, usually there's a 1-inch strip, but I think that what we would do is respect the trim surrounding the 3 windows. Let me go the image, like respect this line here, and then put in the system in this opening while respecting like the center lines of the division.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
And the door, do we need to address which type of door? Is it in the report? What manufacturer?
The staff did not make a, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you, we don't have a specific door for the updated proposal. We had information on the previously proposed doors.
So we were planning to do a Pella Lifestyle. Would it be possible that, so basically the staff report recommended that we follow a similar manufacturer to the one that was installed here. Essentially, would that be something that we could present to staff and not have to come back before the meeting or set some kind of condition?
Well, just is it a wood door or what?
Oh, sorry, it's aluminum clad wood door. It could be all wood door if you all wish for it to be.
And is it, would it be divided or a single light like the other one?
I would like it to be single light as we're trying to create an opening to the patio. A sense of light.
If this were anywhere else on the window, I'd be a little bit less receptive to that, but I don't think that's really a big problem in the back where it is. What does everybody else think about that?
I'm fine with that. I'm also fine with staff having for final approval.
I agree.
I agree.
Staff review.
Okay. Well, are we ready for a vote?
I move that we vote to approve the amended design as discussed, with specific details to be reviewed and approved by staff.
Second the motion.
All in favor of Vice Chair Kelly's motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Chagnon,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Mr. Chairman,
we-
before we go on to do anything else, can we check with staff to make sure that the framing of that is clear enough that they know what kind of certificate to issue?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, through you, yes, the motion was clear enough for my understanding at a later date.
Okay, and it was clear that we're using
Thank you.
referencing the elevation that were presented most recently that had the 3 doors with the right window remaining, as opposed to the other one that was in the proposal.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right, well, thank you, folks. Thanks for bringing your project to us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
And that just leaves us with 11 Chester Place. And so we were advised to continue it.
Yes,
If they
Mr.
don't-
Chairman, sorry, through you, I got a hold of the applicant and they are requesting to continue to the November, I believe, 15th
Okay.
HPC meeting. Yes, November 15th.
Let's go
But
ahead.
you will need to vote on it.
Yeah. Let's have a motion for that then.
I move that we vote to advance 11 Chester to the November meeting.
We continue.
Second that.
Thank you.
All in favor of continuing of Vice Chair Kelly's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Chagnon,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, what else do we have on the menu? We have this handy dandy staff approval spreadsheet, which I'm embarrassed to say I haven't really looked that over in great detail, so I'm going to do it right now.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you, as a reminder, the commission requested that there are monthly updates on what staff has been approving at staff level. So this is just a rundown, this time going back to September 1st, since the meetings have been a little off recently in the last few months. So the next one will be everything from the October 14th up to the Friday before the next meeting.
Thanks. Okay,
Yeah.
so solar panels, roof shingles, and fascia. Okay, yeah, this is great. I appreciate
Yeah.
this, Wendy.
Thank you for putting that together.
Not a problem. I expect
forgot.
next month there will be a lot more things because we just got an influx of applications.
Yeah. I forgot that we kicked roof shingles to staff review.
And solar panels. So we had our first staff review of solar panels.
So thank you for dealing with all of this stuff. We don't have to. I did have questions about 2 of them, number 3 and number 7, which were in-kind replacement. And I had thought those would be a certificate of non-applicability.
So for things that can be seen from the exterior, not including painting, is done at a certificate of appropriateness level. It's just a staff one, and usually we add conditions onto it. Just really basic things like if needed to go through ISD, present your certificate to ISD. that you need to follow up with staff after you get your permit from ISD, so we can go ahead and say it was done the way it was supposed to be. So just those sort of basic things.
Okay, so with the CA, a certificate of applicability, but allowed at the staff level, which is the solar panels, the roof shingles, the in-pen. So the CNAs are for stuff painting, which we don't really, are not applicable.
Yes, technically they're things that we don't have purview over, but we still review and issue certificates for to make sure that we have it on file. And for things such as interior work, we review it also to make sure, for instance, if you're doing kitchen remodel, depending on what you're doing with your stove, you might be putting a vent on the outside. So we make sure we review all of those things to make sure no additional work is being triggered by those things that we don't have purview. So by that, I mean, we can't regulate the paint colors, we can't regulate what people are doing on the inside of their house, but that way we have eyes on things that might be triggered from that work.
How does this work with painting, for example? Sorry, I thought this was going to be an easy thing to conclude. If one doesn't need a building permit to do painting by itself, unless there's wood repair or wood replacement.
Correct.
Someone just take it upon themselves to come to you for a CNA for that?
Yes, so applicants generally come to us and say that they are considering painting, in which case we do tell them that they need to submit an application. Usually it's a photo and then just let us know kind of what they're painting. So that way we can make sure to clarify any additional comments. And if you're wondering what those sort of things are, so a lot of times when people are painting, they find out that the boards are rotted, things like that. So we start those conversations then.
Yeah, it's great just to let them know so they don't go and completely wing it, because painters are not always cognizant of those things.
Yeah.
Because the in-kind, and Dick asked you this already, but item 3, the trim repair was a C of A. I missed that. Like, why was that not a CNA again?
So the trim repair was a certificate of appropriateness, and that's because it was work on the exterior that we do have purview over, but we are allowed at staff level to issue certificates of appropriateness for in-kind and repair work.
I see. Huh. Years ago, when I reshingled my house and did extensive trim repair, it was a C certificate of non-applicability because I was replacing in kind. That's what had me curious there. So that should be a C of A.
Yes, so some things have been updated. For instance, we have found a few certificates of non-applicability that had previously been issued, but they were conditional. We can't condition certificates of non-applicability. So some things have been updated just to clean everything up a bit.
All right, well, thank you for this.
Good, thank you.
And it looks like we have no meeting minutes to review tonight, is that correct?
Correct. The minutes from the last meeting, I think it was the September meeting. It's a little hard because we've had such irregular meetings. I believe are coming to you in the November item. You guys had requested that we go back and review them and clean them up. Our administrative assistant is going through them right now, and she's just still cleaning them up, and then that will be ready for you next month, as will the October 6th meeting minutes, and hopefully today's minutes if our admin assistant has that much time. But she is going on vacation in November, so.
I just thought of this with the minutes. Is Adam Wiley still a non-showing member, or is he officially off the committee?
We have removed him from all communications at this time because we have assumed, since he has missed so many meetings, that he is no longer an acting member. So it is really just the 5 of you now.
We're it, huh?
No.
Everybody stay healthy, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sometimes why my emails sound a little desperate.
Tell your friends how much fun this is.
Yeah,
We'll get
I actually have an email I'm working on in draft to a potential recruit if he turns out to be interested. So we'll see.
That would be great. More applicants we can get, the better. We've received 2 or 3 recently, so.
Oh, good.
And you're going on vacation next month, is that right, Wendy?
Yes, I leave November 10th for the month.
The next month we'll have Sarah.
Yes, you'll be graced
You'll be
with Sarah
off
White.
Friday. Excellent.
Have a
All
great
right.
trip.
Thank you, I will.
Enjoy your time away. We all set?
I think so. Anything
Oh.
else, or should we close the meeting?
I move that we vote to adjourn.
I second that.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. If I'm Vice Chair Kelly, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
yes.
Mr. Chagnon,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes, I guess. Thank you all. See you next
Thank
month.
you. Bye,
Thanks,
Have a
everybody.
good trip, Wendy.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Take care of.